Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sunset TV. I'm Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. 18th November 2022 will go down in history as a significant day, marking a new era in India's space program. The country's first privately developed rocket, Vikram S, was successfully launched on Friday in a suborbital mission from the Sriharikota spaceport. Named Prarambh, the mission marks the beginning of private venture into the promising space launch market. The rocket, Vikram S, has been developed by Hyderabad-based Skyroot Aerospace, a company that was started in 2018 by two former ISRO engineers. It is named after Vikram Sarabhai, the founder of India's space program. Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed it as an important milestone in the journey of India's private space industry, asserting that the accomplishment bears testimony to the immense talent of India's youngsters. In Perspective today, we will analyze with eminent experts all about Mission Prarambh, the road it paves for increased private sector participation, and most importantly, India's position in the global space market. Pleased to welcome, with me in the studio is Dr. W. Selvamoorthy, President, Amity Science, Technology and Innovation Foundation, Amity University. He's also been associated with the DRDO for 40 years and retired as Director General. Dr. Selvamoorthy, thank you for your time. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And joining us virtually are two special guests, Dr. Surendra Pal, distinguished scientist and former senior advisor ISRO, and Mr. Ratan Srivastav, author and independent consultant on aerospace. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the program. Dr. Selvamoorthy, let me begin the program today with you, with your remarks on what is being described as the Prarambh of a new era in India's space program.
Thank you, Tina. Firstly, I must congratulate all people of India, the citizens of India, for having created a new paradigm and a historical milestone today for the Indian space research, which has attained a very important historical moment today by designing, developing, and putting into orbit, putting into the suborbital region, a privately developed the launch vehicle, which is the rocket. This is a historical moment for the reason that now the more private players will be coming into the space. Earlier, Indian Space Research Organization, the Department of Space, they have been primarily developing the launch vehicle, the satellites, all the utilities for the services, testing, evaluation, manufacturing, and everything was done by them. But ISRO was involving private sector also. They have been sourcing the subsystems, components, devices from more than 500 private players. So this is now the new policy, the government which has brought in the Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, and also the Minister, Dr. Jitendra Singh, who has been nurturing this space program for years. Now this policy is a game changer, because now more private players will come into this, because there's a big world market today. $1 trillion is the world market. We hardly have 2%, but the potentials are immense with the kind of intellectual capital we have, the infrastructure we have built. We have built the tacit knowledge through ISRO to launch SLV, ASLV, PSLV, GSLV, the lunar mission, also the Mars orbital mission. All these have proven our power, the technology prowessness, as well as the scientific knowledge in this field. So now this is involving the private sector will produce, I'll say 10x or 100x in terms of the outcome in the space sector. And we will be able to have a major share. So if we are having only 2% share now, can we look at 10%, 15% share in the world market? And that's the goal. By 2030, we are looking at about $77 billion to come in. So that is where you need private players. Now you have many startups coming up in this sector. More than 200 startups are there in space. And last just about 1 year, you have more than 50 startups coming in this. And also there are people from outside India who have the startup would like to tie up with Indian private players. So this is going to be really a game changer. I must compliment the government of India for this wonderful initiative of opening up and the right kind of policy framework and also facilitation, incentivization, which will be given to the private players. Initially maybe at public-private partnership, because you need the hand-holding at initial stages. Like even in this, today's event, the ISRO has played a good role, a significant role in terms of having our own ISRO scientists working there, and also the IIT alumni. So we have the human resource. But now only this ecosystem which has been created by this new policy and involving the private players is going to bring a new paradigm. I would see it's a very, very welcome step, and we are all very happy as scientists that we have achieved a greater milestone. Now this sector will see exponential growth and leaps and bounds in terms of the achievements in space sector, which will propel India to a very highest position in
That's
space
right. I
science.
think the thrust has been of this government to accelerate the growth, increase India's share in the global space market. And in that aspect, this perhaps is a significant step forward. Dr. Pal, Dr. Selvamurthy says it is going to be a game changer. How do you see India now strengthening its position, increasing its share in the global space market? We've been doing quite well in this space sector, but comparatively, if we look at our position in the space market, there is immense scope and potential which we now need to harness.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Selvamurthy, what all he has told, so I don't have to repeat. Let me tell that it's a great achievement. It needs applause from the whole country. The whole country is proud of it. It's an advanced version of a sounding rocket as of now, going to suborbital flights. And this rocket itself has got many applications. When it's developed into a small vehicle, a small satellite launch vehicle in the future, which is the aim, maybe in a couple of 1 or 2 years, because the way in which they have developed this single stage rocket, which has gone to suborbital flights in a record time, in my opinion, almost 2 years, that itself is incredible. And if we go by the same way, maybe next 2 years or less, or maybe 3 years, they will have a small satellite rocket launcher. And with this one, India will have a satellite launcher, small satellite launcher, which can launch the satellites on demand. And small satellites is the future. Elon Musk has shown through his SpaceX that with small satellites you can provide internet, you can have communications, you can do the navigation, and of course, what to talk about scientific things. So I feel that if such a thing is done, small satellites can be launched on demand for remote sensing purposes, for defense, for surveillance purposes, for monitoring special climatic conditions, for scientific experiments. Even this rocket itself can be used for scientific experiments, and I'm sure many persons will be interested from outside, scientists, to put their payloads to check on suborbital levels, about ionospheric conditions, about radiations, etc. So many scientific experiments can be conducted. So this needs to be really explored. And I find that our share in this particular small satellite market, also in suborbital flights, will increase. And yeah, I mean, Agnikul is also coming up. So similar thing, if you've got 2 or 3 such players in the market, we are going to increase our share in the global market. And ISRO, which was doing all the things, perhaps as per the policy, will concentrate on R&D, and the R&D will be given to the private industries. There's one advantage which Skyroot had, which we did not have. What Skyroot has achieved, in ISRO we achieved almost more than a decade, but we did not have the technological base. Now the country has got an advanced technological base and miniaturization of the things. They have used what technology they have used, 3D printing, etc. They have got 3D printing thrusters. Many mechanical systems are 3D printed. The whole structure is composite made, and miniaturized electronics is used. And so all those things are great. It increases the payload capacity, which we did not have when we started SLV3.
That's
for
right,
which
Dr. Pal. And I
was there.
think the underlying message here is that all of this has happened. Today's successful launch of India's first private rocket has happened because of perfect synergy between the startup company that we're talking about and ISRO, which has paved the way for such kind of efforts. Mr. Srivastav, clearly the way forward is public-private partnership if we are to make it big in the space sector. Does today's launch, give that confidence, much required confidence to the industry that the government's intent will become a reality and help all those private players come in a much bigger way into the space sector?
So thank you, Tina, for inviting me to this discussion with my seniors. Dr. Pal and Dr. Silva are much more senior to me. They know a lot. But then what is happening today is a mixture of wisdom, experience, and youth. I can hardly qualify to be a youth, but the people who are mentoring these space startups today are seniors from ISRO. We also know that Pavan Chandna, who's the CEO of the Skyroot Aerospace, is an ex-ISRO scientist. The Agnikul launch, which is going to happen next, possibly, as Dr. Pal may agree with me, is again a launch which is going to be declared successful, hopefully, with a cryogenic engine. This is something which is unbelievable. Dr. Pal will understand from where we come from. We come from a stage of technology denial where we did not have even equipment or even the smallest electronics to develop what we have to do today. And today we are launching a rocket in the private sector, which has been completely made in India, make in India, the entire value chain from design, development, production, validation, testing, and launch is India. This is a huge step in our self-sufficiency going forward. And as Dr. Pal said, and Dr. Salamurthy also said, there's a huge launch market in the world. The launch market today is about $17 billion. It is supposed to become $30 billion by 2027, growing at a CAGR of about 15%. India has hardly a share of it. And hardly a share of meat means that we are only using our resources from Antrix or NSIL to launch satellites where we have the capacity to do so. But do we have the capacity to do so? No, we do not have to, because we have launch vehicles, GSLV or PSLV and SSLV, as Dr. Pal also said, is being developed. But today's market is based upon ready to launch, ready to assemble, quick economical satellites. And those launch vehicles have to come from the private sector,
Right.
which are economical. And as my seniors have also said over here, we have seen that this launch vehicle, which has been developed, is carbon composites, is 3D printing. The Kalam engine is 3D printed engine. Amazing. I mean, how easy it is to think of it, but how difficult it is to make it happen. 3D printing engine is a technological marvel which we have been able to achieve in India. And this means that we are able to reduce the cost of launch. The cost of launch is something which is imperative for all of us in the industry to understand. So if we are going to have a 500 kilogram satellite going up, or a constellation of 500 kilogram satellites going up in the space, and those can be assembled on demand by our private sector, imagine the potential that we have. And this potential has been made possible primarily because of the incubation of the satellite and rocket ecosystem made possible by ISRO.
That's right.
ISRO is, there's nothing, there are no words of praise that I can put to ISRO for making this happen. Because if ISRO was not instrumental in making this happen, this could have never happened. Today, this launch has happened from where? Sriharikota. Who's tracking the satellite? Who's navigating it? Who's taking the data? ISRO. I mean, they have made it possible.
And what's been particularly impressive is the quick turnaround, Dr. Selvamurthy, for a sector that was closed because it being a strategic sector. Now we are seeing the private players coming in a big way. It's going to be a game changer. To understand more about the potential, if you could help us and our viewers, the kind of areas that the private sector will now be allowed to venture in, if we are to talk about the potential and the scope and the needs of people as well.
Right. When you look at a rocket going up to the space, you need the materials. First is to conceptualize, design capability. Then you need the right kind of materials which will withstand the vagaries of those trajectory travels and so on, orbital sojourns. So you need the right kind of material. He mentioned about composites and carbon composites, carbon fiber. So like that you have n number of materials which will go. So you need to produce the materials. Then you need propulsion. So you have solid state propulsion, you have liquid propulsion. So you need propellant development. And so there again, you need propellants. The next thing is control, guidance, navigation, payload integration, payload separation, like multi-orbital insertions we are talking about, because we want to, at one launch, can we introduce more satellites in different orbits? So all this capability, then computational capability, modeling and simulation, you see the numerous possibility, not only for scientists, technologists, but also to the manufacturing, because all this requires the subsystems, components, devices. So you will have a growth of a numerous number of industries in all these fields. Ultimately, you will see, like in the next 10 years, government has already thought 20,000 satellites will be put in space in one. So every year we have to launch 2,000 satellites. So it's a big business.
Right.
So there is a tremendous market available today because it needs in strategic sector. Tomorrow there is a massive the disaster. How would you manage? You may need low Earth orbit or a suborbital the satellites by which you will be able to give the monitoring, the communication, and also rescue operations. All this may be possible. And in war, you may need launch on demand capability. We may have to have a net-centric operations in a battlefield where you need satellite communications and also operations for missiles, aircraft, aerial platforms, drones, and so on. Everything will be on net-centric, space-based assets are going to be used in a big way. That is where the requirement is huge, both in strategic sector, security sector, as well as in the non-strategic civilian sector. Education, you need a n number of the satellites. You need for communication. You need for telemedicine at low Earth. You need telemedicine through this. So agriculture, so everywhere I find phenomenal. Now even we are thinking about the energy. Can we put solar cells in space? By then you transmit those energy through microwave to the Earth. So I see phenomenal applications. That is where one ISRO, it has done extremely well. Compliments, kudos. Whatever we are today, country as a whole in space is because of the Indian Space Research Organization. Right from Vikram Sarabhai, Satish Dhawan, all those stalwarts who have led this organization have done this proud, taking India to almost about 5th position in space in terms of capability and also the demonstration. And all our launch vehicles are highly reliable. The reliability in our system is very high. That is why other people from other countries are coming with their satellites and assets to be launched in space to India because of this high reliability. And then ISRO has created a culture where right from human resource, how do we keep them motivated and keep them tuned to a high level of performance? Then they have built the R&D infrastructure, not only within ISRO, now they are spreading it out. Then they are connecting with academia, like Amity University. The chairmen have come, at least 3 of the 4 chairmen, Amity University, they have come, interacted with children. We are working for their projects there. So they are now looking at futuristic requirements which has to be done through academia. Industry cannot be able to do. So that is being done. So they are connecting with academia, they are connecting with industry, and they are also connecting with the government. And fortunately, this comes under PMO. The whole Department of Space comes under PMO, nurtured by a separate minister there. And so this also helps to propel. This is a model of success. Why ISRO could achieve in such a short time is also the kind of empowerment the scientists and the administrators they get in Department of Space is a good model to be replicated in many systems. And
certainly. So there are multiple factors, Dr. Pal, that ISRO boasts of, and it is now hand-holding these startups who are venturing into the sector. The fact is, each time we talk about futuristic technology, the role of investment becomes all the more important. So as these companies make way to write their success stories in the space sector, how are we going to ensure that investment does not become a problem?
Investment is a issue, but I am sure with our success, investment will come with the private industries. I see another sector for the private industries. Besides this rocket and satellites, applications. We have got the communication satellites, we have got the remote sensing satellites, and we have got the navigation satellites. Besides the GPS, Galileo, BeiDou, and QZSS, we are the agency which have got our own navigation satellites. So, and if those applications, if we can develop it, both communication, navigation, and NavCom, or what we call SATCOM, navigation and communication, remote sensing, all are put together, has got a large market. And I'm sure the industries in these application areas will also come up, like what they have come up for the rockets. And I'm aware of it that some of the startups are starting for propellants, different types of propellants, including the ion thrusters, etc. So those things also will feed into it, and definitely our payload capabilities will increase. We can increase, give a better mass. Our reliability will increase. I'm quite confident about our future with the private industries and ISRO providing the support for the new technologies to be developed. Thank you.
Mr. Srivastava, are there any other roadblocks that you see? Because there is huge potential, but at the same time, the right policy and the right implementation is the key factor.
Tina, I would agree with my seniors, but at the same time, it's not difficult to see that there could be some roadblocks on the way. So, for example, today's rocket launch is a technology demonstrator. It just touched the periphery of the space at the cover line, and it came down. This is just short of 100 kilometers in the space, and it fell down. It's all right. So it has been able to validate and test the systems that are required for a commercial flight. The fact remains that there's a huge market in the country for commercial satellites to be launched, and those commercial satellites to be launched have to be launched with kind of the efficiency that we need in terms of both economy as well as in the frequency. So it is a validation of it is the first of the sorts. It's a validation of the systems that we can produce in the private sector. It's a small rocket, it's a fin stabilized rocket, it's a solid propellant rocket. Let's not forget that there are complex rockets which are required for orbital systems. This is a very small rocket in suborbital systems. It has not placed any satellite in the orbit.
Mhm.
Putting satellites in the orbit, in low Earth orbit, also requires a system which needs a lot of complexity and maturity. That cannot happen without the support of ISRO, for sure. That's one thing. The other thing is this, that as we go forward, we must understand that there could be more, I would say, requirements of on-demand satellite systems, on-demand rocket systems to be produced. How much can Sriharikota take? Sriharikota is the only launch facility we have.
Yes.
So we need to have definitely more than one launch facility. And given the geopolitics and given our position in the globe, we need to have a launch system which can put our satellites in the space, given the East Coast facilities that we can have. West Coast does not work very well for us. So there are many challenges. I'm not saying I'm not optimistic about it, but what I'm saying to say is this is the first. We have to do a lot, and we have a long journey to go.
That's right. So it's just the beginning of a new era, Dr. Selvamurthy. There are new
Praram,
opportunities.
It's a Praram. Praram.
Absolutely, it's Praram, but at the same time, we also have to keep in mind the challenges, some of the shortcomings that Dr. Srivastava has pointed out. How do you ensure that if we are to make it big, we have to increase the share of India's, we have to increase our position in the global space market? We need to tackle these shortcomings, and in a very short span of time. Prime Minister Modi, in fact, has spoken umpteen number of times about how he wants to see India as a developed country in the next 25 years when we mark 100 years of independence. So we have this very little window that, that we have to utilize for actually ensuring that these shortcomings are tackled.
See, even in this 75 years of independence, the Azadi Ka Amrut Mahotsav, which when we are celebrating this, we are going to launch in this year itself 75 student-developed nano satellite or mini satellite, whatever you want to call. Small satellites are going to be launched, 75 satellites in this year. Then when you look at the Amrit Kaal, next 25 years, as Honorable Prime Minister has said, this is going to be important for us. How we perform during this period is going to determine where we want to be. whether we want to be in a global superpower in number 3 or number 2, wherever we want to be. So that will be decided by, including in space sector, that what we are going to do, how much we are going to use this space power which we have developed over a period of time in this next 25 years. How are we going to harness this and to give a new trajectory, new paradigm? So this is what this policy is, yet another initiative. And in space, which is in space, the policy which has been announced is also to further promote the space, regulate the credentials of the space sector to be maintained in terms of reliability, safety. All these aspects will be taken care of. So the government, it's an evolution, it's a process of evolution.
Absolutely. And
Government
as the Prime Minister says, we want to become a force which is for the global good.
Yes.
I think that's the most important aspect. So growth, which is also sustainable, that is something that India has been progressing upon. That having been said, time is running out. I'll have to wind up the program. Thank you, Dr. Pal, Mr. Srivastav, and Dr. Selvamurthy for joining us on this edition of Perspective, sharing your thoughts with us and our viewers. Absolute pleasure to have all of you on this program. Viewers, thank you to you as well for your time. I'll see you same time tomorrow now. Until then, you take good care of yourselves. Keep watching Sunset TV.